Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to a cool, misty, but absolutely gorgeous morning out here in the African bush. This is Safari Live. Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Morning. As you can see, it's a very strange morning for this time of the year. It's quite cool, 22 degrees Celsius, 72 Fahrenheit. My name is Brent Leo Smith, and I have Craig, aka Batman, on camera with me today. And we are following our noses, which means we're looking for my favorite animal, the African wild dog. James is also giving us a hand, so we know how far they can move. So we're going on big circles through the area. And of course, for those of you who missed yesterday's sunset safari, it was a roller coaster of emotions. We were with the Investec pack, and one of them got killed by a Styx lioness right next to us. And it was really difficult to watch at the time, but it is nature, and so I still get a little bit emotional about losing one of my puppies, my favorite animals, but it is what happens, and we're just really privileged to be able to see nature taking place as it has for millennia in front of us. Now, the most important thing to take from what happened there, and some positive news. So after we closed down yesterday, the wild dogs made a kill. So life goes on, and there's no time for mourning. They've just got to carry on. So they killed an impala, and just after we closed down. So even though they lost a pack member, they were out hunting straight away, and they did manage to catch an impala. So the pack went to bed with full tummies last night, which is a good thing. So we're now doing these big leaps. That was on Vulture's Nest, which is about 3 kilometers that way. They were last seen heading east from there. So we're gonna go and slowly move our way back towards seeing if we can find any tracks, or as I said, we're going to follow our nose, because of course you can smell where wild dogs have been, especially on a cool morning like this. But while we continue our search for Africa's painted wolf, let's go to Stef, who's got the animal that likes the painted wolf least on foot.
You know, if there's one person that is going to be finding those dogs today, it's old friend Brent Leo Smith. He definitely has the tenacity to do that. But I thought that I'd open the show this morning with the herd of impala that were attacked by those wild dogs last night. I'm Stef Winterboer. We are on foot today, and quite nicely in this misty morning. I must be quite honest with you, it's what a beautiful day. Some thick billowing clouds around, a little bit of mist on top of the crests, and of course starting off the morning with a herd of impala like this, literally 50 yards away from where we are, is just one of those fantastic things. Now, one thing that is immediately apparent, and I'm just going to pick up my binoculars to make 100% sure, but I don't see too many youngsters here. Now, I have a feeling that that's because the youngsters are probably still, there are a few, but not a lot, that the new crop of lambs that were born literally in November, December are still busy hiding out after being bombshelled yesterday by those wild dog. Wild dog have a dramatic effect on prey species of animals in any given area. Impala, nyala and bushbuck in particular are the preferred prey of wild dog. And when they move into an area, when they've got as many mouths to feed as those wild dog have, then quite often these impala herds get so fragmented that they almost totally disappear from view. Now, There's probably in this herd, I don't know, close on about 50 or 60 individuals, and I would imagine that there's close to between 15 and 30 youngsters, young babies. They won't be too far away from here. The mothers would have regrouped last night. They'll be making contact calls through most of the evening. Those babies would slowly start to drift back onto the open area now. If not having done so already, quite often they form these nursery herds of babies together. So it's going to be, for me at least, interesting to see how quickly an impala herd recovers after being attacked by a wild dog, like we saw last night. What are we doing today? Good question. Because we've got a full 3 hours with you today, because we've slightly amended the safari times and now we can get out before it goes dark, we've got a full 3 hours with you today. And that means that we are going to try and push for a deeper part of the reserve, a portion of the reserve that we don't normally get to, the far southern and eastern side of this particular reserve. A place where I haven't done a lot of walking in recent months. I probably have been there a handful of times, maybe less than 5 times in the last year, maybe. So I'm looking forward to getting out there. It's a botanically very diverse portion of Djuma Private Game Reserve, and I think it's because there are rocks a lot closer to the surface there, which make the soil profile much thinner. And it also makes it a little bit more difficult for the plants to grow, and so you get a lot of speciation, you get a lot of differentiation of plants there, and I'm looking forward to going snooping around those drainage lines and see what we can find for you today. Alright, so before we march off in that direction, we're just going to send you over to James and for him to say hello, basically.
Hello, everybody. There is a gorgeous crested francolin feeding in the grass. My name is James Hendry. I'm sitting watching this francolin, and we're looking for wild dogs. Hashtag Safari Live, of course, is how you get hold of us. Questions at WildEarthTV, as live as Stef and Brent. And I must just say, for those of you who were watching yesterday, I'm sure Brent has alluded to it and perhaps described what happened. Watching the footage of that hapless pup being killed by the lions really made me feel very little affection for lions at all. It was heart-wrenching stuff. So, yeah, really nature at its most savage, I suppose. But that's how it goes out here. And I wanted to ask you something. It was, for me, dreadful to watch. And I mean, I only watch replays of it, so I can only imagine what it must have been live. But why is it that we feel such a tremendous outpouring of emotion when we watch a wild dog killed by a lion? We don't feel anything like the same when we see Karula kill the baby impala. Yes, there's an element of kind of, oh, shame, poor little thing. But it's not the same. And why is that the case? I don't really understand it myself. We don't see those dogs that often. Perhaps it's got something to do with the fact that they are endangered. I don't think it's that though at all. I've got my own theories on it, but tell me why you think it is, perhaps. Hashtags for our live questions at WildEarth.TV. Let's have one last look at that francolin, because I think if I carry on driving through here, I will probably lose signal. We're just going up to Buffelshoek Dam to see if we can't find something there. I haven't found any tracks yet. I don't think Brent has either. Right, well, we'll just ease forward and let's just see. In fact, let's head back to Stef. He's got the sunrise, and I'll see you at Buffelshoek Dam.
I do have the sunrise. Have a look at that. And of course, quarantine clearings are one of the best places to have a sunrise and a sunset, and it is definitely not a disappointment today. That is a marula tree that the sunrise is going through at the moment. And Jandre, just reframe there and then get yourselves a screen grab for your screensaver today, or your wallpaper, or whatever you want to put on your phone. That is a proper sunrise this morning. Filtered, of course, through the moisture that's in the atmosphere. So what has happened through the evening is the fact that the dew point temperature, the point at which water condenses out of the atmosphere into water droplets, even though they are tiny, was a temperature that was quite close to the ground. And so basically what we're looking at is sunrise through clouds on the ground, or mist. And it's giving this lovely diffuse look to the sun, making it possible for us to actually look at it. But as would happen, the sun is giving off a lot of shortwave radiation right now, which is being absorbed by the ground and is being radiated back out from the bottom, from the Earth's surface, up back at the clouds as long wave radiation. And that will turn the water vapor back, or it'll turn the water vapor, the droplets of water, back into gas and will lift the mist. And it should be gone, dissipated in a few minutes. Probably not more than an hour or so by now. But there are quite a few thick clouds in the atmosphere. It actually looks like it might even rain a bit later on, which I'm hoping for. We need a lot of rain in this area. We've had lots of rain around us. Thankfully, all the major dams are starting to get full in South Africa, with the exception of the Western Cape and northern KwaZulu-Natal, 2 provinces here that are still in the throes of the drought. But just have a look at that. Wow. That is awesome. Just giving you an idea of how big the sky is here. Africa is well renowned for having these endless horizons, and that is exactly what you're looking at there. Very thick clouds in the front, coming in from the south, which is usual, although no wind today, to be honest. It's dead still here, which is probably owing to that mist that has developed. It's allowed to settle. It hasn't been mixed around by unruly wind. Now, we've had a lot of wind here probably for a couple of months now. I'm trying to think now. It's easily close to 3 or 4 months where we've had lots of wind coming out of the south. It's been blowing pretty much consistently. And today's one of those odd mornings that it's just very quiet. It's lovely. Ah, it is nice. Very nice. Setting the tone for this morning's walk. Already on the road, we found a track that I couldn't identify, very close to the camp, and then also we've got a herd of elephant that moved into quarantine last night. They've been feeding off into the valley here during the evening, probably coming onto quarantine clearings for the marulas. So this thicket of trees that you're seeing in front of us here, they're in fruit at the moment, this time of the year, if you're only joining the show now. The trees themselves give off masses of fruit that is devoured by everything, including elephant, and it's a lodestone for elephant. They come from all over the Kruger National Park to the Sabi Sands, which has some of the largest of the marula trees in the Kruger Park. They come in for sort of a little seasonal migration just for the marula fruit. They then leave again towards the end of February, April, and then come back again in force in July and in the dry season. And they do that because the Kruger Park, unlike areas, well, not the Kruger Park, the Sabi Sands where we are now, a portion of the Kruger Park, unlike areas just adjacent to it, in the same park, have a lot of woody species of plants. As soon as the grass dies out, end of May into June, the elephant all start coming back for the woody species of plant here as their diet slowly changes to a more tree-based diet into the dry season. And then it all just goes through another cycle again. As soon as the grass comes back in November, December, they all leave, they come back for the marulas in February, March, they go back into the park again to eat the last of the grass from April through to May, and come back here again from July all the way through to October for all the woody species of plant. Quite nice. Right. So, that rascal Brent is busy following up on those wild dog. I'm sure he's quite excited to tell you what their movements have been from last night. So you're off to him. We're going to carry on walking down here.
Well, no updates just yet. James and oh, excuse me, frog in the throat. James and I are still crisscrossing the area, trying to see if we have any luck at tracks, and they've probably been on the move for a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes now. So those of you who watch the Djuma Dam can, please keep an eye out there, because they could really very easily pop up, and we would love your help in aiding us in finding these incredible creatures. I think it's unlikely that they're still static. They get going just before first light. We were out then, but unfortunately no such luck. And I don't think they would have slept near a river system or whatnot last night. It was quite cold last night. I think they would have slept somewhere in this block to the west of us. So I'm just going to check very carefully again down in Nyala Road South. make sure there's no tracks crossing. Now, James has looped through here, but as with wild dogs, it's very possible that they might have crossed on top of his tracks. So if we get nothing here, we're going to check Battalier, maybe even up to Cheetah cut line. So we're just going to keep working this area. Of course, they might have foxed us all and gone west instead of east, but their last direction last night was east. Remember the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can pop us an email to questions@wildearth.tv if you want to ask us any questions. False salam. Oh, that's just too beautiful. There's a brown snake eagle silhouetted on top of a dead tree with the sun rising. It is gorgeous. Now, the reason I know it's a brown snake eagle is just its body posture, very upright, and oh, here we go. You can see as it flew away, no feathers on the wings. Now, we've got another friend with us. It seems like we've been having mantises on the dashboard for quite a few mornings. Now, this is an incredibly beautiful little mantid, and I can't see because of the wings, but it looks like a male. But look at that camouflage. Now, you can imagine if that was sitting on a tree or grass. I mean, its legs even look like moss. Very, very, very beautiful. Busy cleaning his antennae. And you see that? Now he's bent his antennae down and it's in his mouth. So he's giving it a good clean. Make sure it's all functioning well. Now, it always pays to stop and listen at this time of the morning. And so far, just the dawn chorus of birds. What we had Mantina, the female mantis, yesterday. I said, this looks like a male, so we'll call him Manfred. Manfred, let's go find some wild dogs, Manfred. So, as I said, I think they slept somewhere in here. So I'm just going very carefully. As I said, they're probably on the move, but with dogs, they can go every single which direction. And that's why it pays to just really circle a nice big area. And obviously it's much easier. We do share a mutual love of wild dogs. Let's go see how James's hunt is going.
Well, I found the sun. That was very clever of us, wasn't it, Viam? Mm-hmm. Yes. What I want to do, Brent showed you some dashboard detritus, probably from the garage as well. Look at this moth. Now, that moth definitely appears in the book that I have in the tent. I don't think it appears in the book that I have with me here, which is distressing. So I'm afraid I cannot tell you what it is just yet. But it is very impressive. Would you not say? Yes. Good. Then, I mean, I think he's the same family. In fact, he's right next to, in the book, the dice moth. So he's the same family as the dice moths, whatever that is. Then this chap here, who's rather special, his family is the Laciocampidae, or the egger moths, I think. I think he is an egger moth. I'm going to just try and turn him, because he's so very specially coloured. Or shaped, really. Isn't he nice? Yes, he's definitely an egger moth. Gorgeous. And then one more over here, Via. You see that one there? That is a moth that is not the turd of a bird. Although it is certainly disguised as the turd of a bird, it is in fact a moth. And of course, if your main predator happens to be a bird, what better way to avoid being eaten by your main predator than to look like its turd. Good. Excellent. Right, we have some male leopard tracks on the road here going the other way. We're on Biffles or Cutline. I'm reticent to follow them because Aubrey did find tracks of a male going into Arathusa, but there is just a small chance that this might be our old pal Mvula, who was seen the other day. So that would be quite nice. Anyway, what we're going to do, as Brent says, circling for the wild dogs, very important. So we're going to go up to the top here and check the eastern boundary, because I think that is very important. Right, I believe we have some answers to the wild dog question. Right. So Holly, you say perhaps it is because we see that prey is prey, and therefore it's not so surprising when something like a leopard kills a baby impala, and we don't get nearly as upset as we do when we witness a predator being killed. VM's theory is that we are predators ourselves, and so we feel some kind. Stop me if I go wrong here. And so we feel some kind of almost kinship with other predators, and so when they get killed, it's kind of it's just a bit closer to home, right, VM? Would that be correct? My theory is, well, I mean, I think there are probably a multitude of factors, but I think one of the main ones is that we own dogs, don't we? We identify with them, we understand their personalities, we see the way that they behave, and I know a number of you agreed with me on that. So I think that makes a big difference. But, you know, this leopard track is not very old. It looks quite nice. Anyway, I also think that the fact that they're rare makes a big difference, of course. They're not common creatures, and so when we see one killed, it's that much more difficult. But at the same time, I do think it's the fact that we've domesticated dogs. If we see lions killed, it is terrible. It makes us feel horrible. I mean, we had to watch all of those Styx cubs die. We had to watch two of our precious little Nkuhumas die. And to me, I think the difficulty was that we became attached to those characters. We knew them intimately. We watched them day in and day out, and then they were taken from us. And so there was a feeling of, well, this is of attachment to them. But the dogs we don't have that same attachment to, because we don't see them all the time. They don't have names. Yes, the pack has a name, but we don't know which pup that was. We didn't have any particular attachment to us. This leopard came up here and then went down that way. So it is very interesting. Well, now here we go. Would I have felt the same way if the wild dogs had killed the Styx cubs? I'm almost certain I wouldn't. I'm almost certain, yes, I would have felt, oof, that's horrible. But I'm sure I would have felt the same stab of emotion that I did there. There's something about the wild dogs being the underdog, perhaps, that makes it that much more difficult to watch. I don't know. Let's just quickly have a look at this very brilliant arachnid. And thank you, Christine, for that comment all the way from Calgary in Canada. Do you see this spider that has very cleverly set its web in amongst two grass stalks? Isn't that beautiful? And always good just to have a little bit of a listen here. Gossamer. See that? Gossamer. I can't see the actual spider. Can you, Vim? Perhaps it is lurking to the left or right.
I have one of the spiders in the car today.
Oh, yes, Vim is pointing out that a spider got into the car with us today, and perhaps I should put him there. Vim, I think the very fact that he was in the car indicates that he's perhaps not a web builder. There's another moth. I don't know what kind of moth that is. Kirsten has identified it correctly as a brown moth. Well done, Kirsten. For those of you who are wondering, Kirsten is the director. you're saying my apparent dislike of lions is perhaps sending the wrong message to our audience, and that all creatures deserve to be loved and appreciated. I agree with you completely, but I don't think that I hope I'm not sending a wrong message to our audience at all. It's not that I don't like lions at all. It's just that they don't have characters that I can identify with in the same way that I can with dogs, because obviously I've known dogs since I was a very small boy. Lions are magnificent. They are the keystone predator of this area. This area would look nothing like what it does without the presence of Africa's premier predator. No, I don't dislike lions at all in that way. But certainly I felt a real sting of emotion yesterday. This male leopard came. And Lisa, you say it was also hard because Brent was so affected by it. He loves the wild dog so much. Yeah, I mean, certainly. There was listening to Brent's voice narrating what was going on there was absolutely, it made it hugely more difficult. I agree. Because he was very clearly deeply touched by it. And who wouldn't be? You'd have to be pretty hard-hearted not to be. And let me just quickly go back to that other comment about sending the wrong message to our audience. It really is important that if I have given that message, that's not what I mean. I don't mean for a second that lions aren't equally as important, as magnificent as all the animals we get out here. But my sense of identification with them isn't quite the same as it is with the dogs. There are tracks all over this road, unfortunately none of them wild dogs. Civets, leopards, etc., etc. That leopard track is really pretty fresh. Right, Stef's got some tracks to show you. Oh, it was a golden-breasted bunting. Let's go across to Stef and find out what those tracks are.
Golden-breasted bunting, eh? It's a pretty awesome bird, one of my favorites. Now, we've got an update on those wild dog that Brent's looking for. We are on a road called Weaver's Nest Road right now. We're probably about halfway down between a road called Philemon's Dip or Philemon's Pump and the Gary Main. We're probably about halfway down the road, and right here is the running track of an African wild dog. There you go. So there's the track just of one. Now I do know that when Brent shut down last night, there weren't all the adults accounted for. There was probably 3 or 4 adults that were not part of the group. This looks like one adult male that has been walking down the road here. And it's intermittent. The tracks are walking and running at intervals, which shows me that this dog was moving at a pace but not running anybody, not really hunting anything. It's quite interesting to see that they're all going down in a southerly direction. Now, dogs themselves, when they've got that many mouths to feed, are gone at first light. They've probably been active already for about an hour. But at times here, it looks as if hyena have been following onto the tracks. Now, that's not unusual for a wild dog to hunt at night time, or to move at night time, in fact. If they get disturbed by a predator, if the lion's close by, if it's a full moon night, they will move. And in this particular case, it looks like this wild dog was moving through here either very early this morning or last night and had a hyena that was busy towing it. And normally, hyena will not bother with wild dog. Wild dog can harass hyena quite badly, and to the point where they can actually do some physical damage to them. But one single dog on their own, it's interesting. Quite often what dogs will do is they'll make a kill on their own, then go back and fetch the rest of the pack, and in the interim it gives a sneaky predator, leopard and lion and hyena, a chance to steal their kill and make off with it. But in this particular case, it's just one dog running still down the road, walking at this particular point, but nevertheless coming down here. It's going to be a cooker of a day. I think the temperature is already probably easily 10 degrees hotter than it was when we started off just half an hour ago. And I think it's going to climb to a point today. Hopefully those thick clouds that are around become thicker and cut off some of that. We've had a blissful summer, to be quite honest. Such a stark contrast to last year, where the heat was just never ending. It just was absolutely ceaseless. Day after day of just hammering sunlight and temperatures way up in the 50 degrees centigrade, so way over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But now, this year, we've been blessed with some very good, a very mild summer. And so far we've just hit the lower averages of our annual rainfall here as well. So we've just crossed the 200 millimeter mark, and that is about the lower average for this area. We get between 200 and 400 millimeters, that much rain across this entire area, which is not much, but definitely need some more, that's for sure. You'd excuse the lack of eye contact if you don't mind. Every now and again you have to just sort of keep your head up. These wild dog have a rather fascinating habit of popping out onto a road in front of you, walking down the road for a little bit and then walking off the bush. And if you're not keeping your head up, you actually miss them on the road. Leopard do the same thing. Every now and again, if you just look up, you realize you've actually been within sight of them. Right, so now we're coming to a junction, and now it becomes a little bit more difficult to pick which way these dogs have been going. So the easiest way is just to look down and to look at the tracks, and that is exactly what I've done now. Now, Lisa, you wanted to know if the wild dog will avoid areas where one of their pack members have been killed. Lisa, in my experience, no, they won't do that, mainly because they have to feed the rest of the pack. Life goes on for a pack of wild dogs, and it's a tough life. They've got to chase down food, which is very difficult. They've got these huge home ranges. You're looking at 400 to 600 square kilometers. So it's like 250 to 300 square miles per pack that they've got to cover. This takes an amazing amount of excuse me, the flies are also starting to heat up today. This takes an amazing amount of time to do, and to sit and mull over a place where a tragedy occurred for wild dog is a luxury that I don't think that they could take, to be quite honest. I think that although they might avoid it initially, it's not because it's a conscious decision to do so. I think it's mainly just because their area is so wide and needs to be traveled so much that they'll only come back to it later on, you know. So I don't think it's a conscious thing. Do they retain some other type of memory of a tragedy like you witnessed yesterday? That's a tough thing to say, you know. You often see elephants carrying around bones, and they almost look like they have a memory, or they're feeling a little bit of melancholy over a death or over a grave site. I've never seen wild dog exhibit any of that. You see them massively stressed in an event and during an event for sure, but they seem to brush it off quite easily, you know. Like, the resilience of these animals out here is just unbelievable, to be quite honest. Something that's insane. Alright, so now while I try and swat madly at the 300 flies that are trying their best to fly into every orifice on my head, I'm going to send you over to Brent for an update on what he's been doing.
Well, I don't envy Stef. Maybe he should cut himself a quarry branch to beat off those 300 flies. So, as you've just seen, their wild dog tracks with Rex and Stef, and I've come here now right down towards the end of the road, and I've got the tracks of one wild dog. So I'm going to get on the radio now, and it's headed straight across our southern boundary. So I'm going to get on the radio shortly, and I'm going to find out from Rex whether he's looking at the tracks of a single dog or multiple dogs. Now, as we've seen, what happens is they bombshell off after an animal, and then the puppies normally stay in one place, and then the adult will come back and fetch if it's been successful. So I'm just going to keep... There's some movement up ahead. Let's go have a look. I'm not sure what it was. I just caught it out of the corner of my eye. Okay, so we're just going to get hold of Rexon. Rexon. So something just caught my eye up ahead. Now we're going to be checking very carefully along the road here. So if my head's hanging off and I'm not looking at you, it means I'm looking for tracks. But there's something was moving. It could have just been an antelope. And see, I've only got track of a single dog. So the rest of the pack could very easily still be on Djuma. Something was moving just around here. Let's get a little bit higher. No, nothing that we can see. See, there are some advantages to being slightly longer than average. So I can almost stand up and my foot still reaches the pedals. Morning, Michael. Michael's wondering, does someone have to report the death of that wild dog puppy to the Endangered Wildlife Trust because they monitor them and because they're so endangered? It's not that you have to, Michael, but it's better if you have, and I already have reported that. And I'm just waiting to hear back if we need to go collect a hair sample or something like that. Now, they'd like to do tests, check if it's got canine TB, even though it might not affect the dogs. It's still something that, just from a general knowledge basis point of view, and also if they are able to do genetics, they keep a genetic sample of them. So as soon as we find out, because I doubt there's much of that carcass left, but we might go back and there should still be hair or blood sample that we can collect. Okay, I don't see any tracks here. Let me just try to get hold of Rexon again. Hello, Koran, red-crested Koran running in the road. Rexon. Morning, Rex. Those Mahlo and Gonzo, was it one or the whole pack? Copy, thanks, Rex. I've got Nkonzo of one crossing south at Weaver's Nest Junction, Gary Main. I'm just going to keep checking up towards Shabam. So it looks like a female red-crested, or is it a male? Oh, turn around. Now, not often you see them out on the road. Normally they prefer a little bit of grass cover. Okay, so as you might have heard there, Rex has only got the tracks of one dog, and so do we. So that's why we're going to keep checking. We might do a loop past Treehouse Dam. You never know, the puppies might still be waiting behind. They could have crossed maybe further to the south of us, further to the east or further to the west. But it's always worth checking. And of course, this is shame, this Koran's not being very smart. It's still running down the road. And, oh no, there we go, it's off it flies. And lands back next to the road. Now, as I said, we're killing two birds with one stone, so to speak here, is because while we're checking this particular area for any more sign of the wild dog, this is also the area we want to check for any sign of our beloved royal family coming back. So I heard they were seen hyena last night, not too far from here, just a little bit to the south on a boundary there. Okay, we've got lots of hyena tracks, Now, speaking of lots of hyena tracks, it sounds like James has one-upped me and got something better than a hyena footprint.
There we are, everybody. One of our very favourite predators coming down the road. We did see two. There they are, two of them. Now, what we want them to do, of course, is go to the left of the screen and find themselves a home on Djuma. Don't they look like brother brothers. They look like two males to me from this distance. Might be wrong. Oh, that's such a nice sight to see. Goodness, we've missed them. Hello, fellows. Hard night out together, foraging for things. They still seem to be sort of on the prowl for something. You know, normally by this time of the day they've sort of settled, but maybe there's been some lion activity around here. It could be that the wild dogs were up here, but the tracks, of course, that Brent has are way down to the south, and we're on the far north, of course, on the Buffelshoek cut line. And so I suspect if there's any meat in the offing here, they're following something perhaps like a leopard or a lion. Now, those male leopard tracks that we followed have just gone off the road, we think, to the south. He's calling his mate there, telling him to hurry up, get on with things. So I'd love to know from any of you who are part of perhaps the Djuma, Arathusa, Hyena Facebook group, perhaps you can identify these chaps for us. I haven't seen them for so long. I was getting relatively okay at identifying them at one stage last year, but that has all disappeared. Now, the reason I'm not sort of rushing forward to go up to them is that once they get to adulthood, they've become less and less confiding with vehicles. Okay, good, they're going in the right direction, and you know where they're heading towards, of course, is the Mvuburo Den. Let me just go down here. Vaz, very good question. You're wondering why it is that the hyena is seemingly so oddly shaped, with the back end lower than the front end. It's for two reasons, we think. The first being that, much like a wildebeest, this is an animal designed to move big distances. And apparently there is some kind of physiological mechanism that makes that design much more efficient if you are going to move big distances. And it apparently is a little bit slower, it makes you slightly slower than you would be if you had a big hind quarter. There, they're going straight down here. Now the Mvuburo Den is not too far from here, so we're going to go straight there once we've looked at these chaps. I think these are two males. There they go. I'll just finish what I was going to say. So, that's the other reason, is that they carry most of the musculature that they have is in, for their jaws, is obviously in that massive head and neck. And so they've got a big head and neck to carry. But what they have, and I forget exactly in which context I read this, but if you look at the way a hyena moves, its point of balance is pretty much over its front shoulders. So it's got almost as much mass in front of its shoulders as it does behind them. And what that means is that it's perfectly balanced. It sort of puts a fulcrum there that makes it very easy for the animal to move. Okay, let's move here. The Mvuburo Den is just down here, and I think we're going to go straight there and see if these guys don't arrive. And perhaps it means that they're all back. That'd be nice. And somebody will go and visit Gwen today as well. Mel, you're wondering about the predator hierarchy. I think you're saying, are wild dogs or hyenas more superior in the wild? Well, what we have is a situation where I hesitate to use the word superior, but there's a hierarchy. The hierarchy is defined by two things. One is size, and the other is sociality. Now, the latter tends to dominate. So the more social you are, the more dominant you're going to be, because you can afford to take risks. A hyena can take a risk because if it gets injured, its friends will help it. It will still be able to find food, scavenge food, and so it will take risks. Wild dogs the same, they will take risks. because they look after each other. Lions obviously will take risks too because they kill in groups, they don't kill alone. And so that's the one thing. Then the second thing, of course, is size. The bigger you are, the more dominant you are. And so if you take those two factors into consideration, the predator hierarchy out here goes lions on top, hyenas second, wild dogs third, and there's some impala up ahead. Then we have leopard, and then we have cheetah. Now that's not strict. A sufficiently large group of hyenas, there a whole lot of impala, not too usual though, and then a sufficiently large pack of wild dogs will dominate a smaller group of hyenas. So there is a bit of interchange going on, but very seldom, in fact almost never, will you find a leopard physically dominating a situation where there's another predator involved, unless that predator is much smaller and also alone. So a jackal or perhaps a cheetah, a leopard will chase off. But for the rest, they avoid conflict. That's not to say they don't sometimes steal from wild dogs, which they do. Jamil, you want to know how far a hyena can run? Well, it really depends on what the hyena's running for. They can run, how far in distance? I reckon some of these hyenas probably cover about, say, 12 to 14 miles in a night. I would imagine that's probably what they do, 20 to 25 kilometers in a night. But if they have to, I imagine they can probably go a lot further. The thing is that they're able to maintain a relatively brisk speed. So although they don't have a high top-end speed, they can maintain their top speed for a substantial distance. And well, I don't know what that distance would be, I'm afraid, but it would certainly be for around about half an hour. They could run pretty much top speed. No, there has been no further visitation here that I can see. Maybe that scouting party is coming down to check out the lay of the land before the rest of them come down. It was a bit of a long shot, to be honest. Laura, as we arrive at the den here, of course, which is an excellent place to rest, you say, how long do hyenas sleep for? And when do they sleep? Laura, right, so they sleep probably not quite as much as lions do, in fact substantially less probably. So a lion will sleep about 20 hours a day. I'd say a hyena probably doesn't sleep much less than 12. I'd say between 12 and 16 hours a hyena will probably snooze. Not as soundly as a lion, because obviously it has to be careful of what's going on around it, but they sleep a huge amount. They are carnivores, which means that they do not process a huge amount of fat. It simply isn't fat in what they eat, and that means making energy from protein, which is very expensive, very difficult to do, makes them tired quite a lot of the time. Even wild dogs will sleep probably 12 hours at least every day. Even though they're more energetic when they're awake, they will sleep for at least 12 hours a day. So much like a domestic cat or dog. When they sleep is normally during the day. So they will operate around night time. They're a dominant predator around here. They operate at night. It also helps them to avoid lions, of course, during the night time. So they'll do that. And so they sleep during the day. Those young males, I suspect, will find a bush, find them and sleep under it for most of the day. And sometimes you'll be walking randomly through the wild and you'll find a hyena just lying under a bush. The clan is very much spread out, except for the females who've got youngsters at the den site, wherever that den site happens to be. And there will be one. We think it's on the Manuleti. Bill, for the same reason that I'm trying to think of the the best way to describe this. Well, you're asking why it is that Gwen wouldn't start her own clan. I suspect for the same reason that what's the best example I can use here? For this, the same reason that not everybody starts, not everybody becomes the queen. You're kind of born into it in a hyena clan, and I think that there's definitely an element of psychology behind it. There's an element that you don't almost. I mean, I'm hesitate to put this in such. Sorry, the game drive radio is driving me mad. There's an element of it that is, it's very anthropomorphic for me to say this, but there must be a psychological element where the hyena doesn't believe necessarily that she's able to set up her own clan because she's used to being subordinate. She's not used to leading. She hasn't been trained into it. Remember, a hyena, when it is born, it's born into a hierarchy, and that hierarchy is enforced throughout its life. So if it's born as a dominant or to a dominant female, that hyena will immediately start to perform in a dominant manner to all the other adults around it, all the other cubs around it, and those lessons of dominance will be reinforced. For a subordinate hyena, the opposite is true. It's born and dominated from the time it's born, and so by the time it gets to Gwen's stage, where she's quite an old hyena, she's got very blunt teeth, so I mean she's probably at least 10 or 12 years old. You find that she's been dominated her entire life. It's highly unlikely, I imagine, that she'd ever set up a clan on her own. And of course, females don't just leave the clans; they stay in the clans that they're born to for life normally. I missed this question. Cheryl in Michigan, you say, would the male that mated Gwen visit her? No, I don't think so, Cheryl. The male hyenas are not really very good on following up, I'm afraid, after the passion that has hopefully produced them new cubs. No, he wouldn't. But also, she would dominate him completely. All the males are subordinate to the females in the hyena clan, and he will have almost zero role. In fact, it's pretty much a zero role in upbringing the cubs. It's just, as with so many of the animals out here, look at these beautiful nyalas. Got a bit of a fright from something. Anyway, there they go. So, no, I don't think they would. And, of course, the males, like with so many of the males out here, their main role, what do you got?
Pig running.
A pig running.
Yeah, look.
Is it gone? It's gone. As with so many of the males, their main role is to just look after the territory and make sure that other males don't invade. Let's head across to Stef. He's got something that is sprayed, doesn't smell nice, and is unusual out of the water.
So he was describing those hyena that he was with, was he? No. This what you're looking at there is a clump of grass that has, unfortunately for the grass, passed through the digestive system of a hippopotamus. Now, hippo dung is unique in the fact that hippo themselves are quite unique. Excuse me. Hippo do not have any external scent glands, so they don't have any what we call exocrine glands. They don't have glands that they can use to mark their territory. Thinking of a hyena, for instance, which has a very well developed gland under its tail. It's got an anal gland that it can actually fabricate a pasting on that has a short-term and a long-term use. Very, very highly developed, highly evolved glandular system that the hyena use for communication. Hippo don't have any of that. So the only way that hippos can communicate with each other when they're out of the water is through these signposts, these dung piles that they do. And they literally spread these wherever they go. This is a very fresh dung pile, evidenced by the fact that the dung is still so wet, it's still busy dripping off of the leaves. As you can see here, the moisture is still collecting at the bottom of the leaf. So this isn't more that, I would suggest that this is probably less than an hour old, and that this hippo passed by here very recently and decided to defecate on this road. Now, hippos tend to defecate in areas where they are visiting that evening, and I'm going to draw in the sand now for you a picture of what hippo do from a distribution point of view. But hippo will also stop and investigate and add dung to this, but I don't see dung being added in the extremities of where they're feeding. Dung normally gets added to signboards much closer to where they sleep for the day. And I think it's because as the hippo come back from their adventures over the evening, they like these collection points where they can basically tell which members of the pod have come past here and what their status is, you know, how healthy are they, etc., etc. But they don't do that on these further ones. These further ones are literally just to say, I've been here, this is my spot, I claim this for being mine. So I do think that there's a sophistication to the ways hippo mark their territory. I just don't think it's as evolved as it is with hyena. All right, so let me draw a river on the sand over here. So I'm going to use my foot. That is my impression of a river. And here we have a hippo pod. So there will be a hippo pod, and this pod will generally, when there's a lot of water, have one male hippo and all his female hippo. And they will be together during the day as a contact species. At night time, and on either side of the river, there's this teardrop shaped feeding area that the hippo will utilize. Now, this can be anywhere up to 30 miles big on either side of the bank. And every pod of hippo will have their own. The next pod of hippo, which will be at this point here, will also have their own teardrop, and it will be lapped in certain areas. But close to the water, the bull hippo will not tolerate other bull hippo from coming close by or too close by if there's a lot of water. Of course, as the water shrinks, the dynamics of the space gets much lower, and you can get these massive collections of hippo. But quite often, quite frequently, the bull hippo have massive arguments with one another, even killing each other, because the space is just so limited. So what happened here was there's a hippo pod at Cheetah Plains, which we're loving to see, especially with that new little baby there. This hippo that's come here is at one of these, at Chitwa Dam. This hippo that we're looking at is at one of these extremities here. It's quite far away from where we're standing at the moment. I would say we're probably about 4 kilometers or so from the dam itself. And so as these hippo leave the river, they would start to disperse. Mothers and calves, young bulls on their own, the big bull on his own, single females, groups of adolescents will be together, and they will go and feed. In this particular case, it looks like a young male hippo, he's just been on his own, has been wandering around feeding in this area and decided to leave his mark here just to let other hippo know, look, I've been here for the day. Quite nice, eh? Now, Aaron, you've asked me if hippo have a favorite grass species to eat, and you're asking this question all the way from New Zealand. Aaron, yes, there will be specific grasses that the hippo do like to eat, not a particular single grass species. They are bulk feeders, they're hindgut fermenters, which means that they can feed on a wide variety of grass. They're not specialist feeders like a wildebeest would be, or a waterbuck, or an impala for that matter of fact. So they're very similar to white rhinoceros, warthog and elephant in that they can feed on a massive variety of different grasses. So any of the grass that you're looking at right now are palatable, in other words, can be eaten by a hippopotamus. Not that the hippo spent much time eating here. They do tend to stay away from the more aromatic species of grasses that I've noticed, at least anyway, unless they really have to eat them. They will quite often eat around grasses that have a strong smell or a strong perfume to them, mainly because the oils that give the grass that strong smell are distasteful. They don't taste very nice. Not that the hippo can't use it for food. It's just that they don't taste very nice. And because of that, these hippo maintain what we call a hippo lawn. And quite often when you get a patch of grass that's a particular favorite of a hippo, they will come in and they will eat that grass literally down to this big, sort of half an inch high, and they will maintain that lawn. It looks almost like a golf green when you come upon it in the bush. And pathways, the hippo will go into a pathway, eat this patch of grass until there's nothing left, and then move on to the next patch. So I would say that they are selective in what grass they can eat, but they're not specialist feeders because of the fact that they don't have to eat just high quality grass. Right, we're going to carry on over here and head off into that area. We have been sidetracked a little bit following that wild dog, so the initial plan of heading into that botanically diverse area is looking like a dream for today, but we're going to try and get out there anyway. You're off to James, I think he's got a squirrel.
There we are, everybody. Very cross. Look how angry it is. Really very cross indeed, but we can't see what he's cross at or cross with. I've been looking underneath the tree there, can't see anything there. Might be a snake. It's not a bird in the air because I can't see any birds around here. We are close to the Wahlberg's eagle's nest. They do alarm call at the Wahlberg's. But I suspect a snake or something like a slender mongoose perhaps has scuttled under the bushes here. Anyway, looking much more relaxed now. Look how far away the squirrel is from us. Just gives you a depressing indication of how much life we drive past by mistake, I feel, seeing that. And you might also hear the call of the violet-backed starling. Naturally, it's stopped now. It's going to get quite hot today. Alright, we're going to go down towards Twin Dams now, and then towards Gwen's home, and see if we can't find something there. Are you getting hot, Fiam? You are? Mm-hmm. Did you bring a picnic today, Fiam?
Nope.
Why not? Oh, he hasn't brought a picnic in a while, he says. Now, what's wrong? Are you on diet, Vim?
No, I keep on forgetting the apples on the car and the stores.
Ah, you keep forgetting the apples on the car. Now, David, you're all the way in Napa and wondering about the presence of rock hyraxes or dussies here. And for those of you who don't know, a rock hyrax is, interestingly, although a different order entirely, the most closely related animal that we have here to an elephant. It's about this big. Let me show you a picture because I think it's going to be difficult for people to understand. David, in short, no, we don't get them here because there are no rocky outcrops. Anywhere you have a rocky outcrop, you will normally have rock hyraxes. I've seen them just north of here at Palabor. There are a whole lot of rocky outcrops there, and there you find the rock hyrax. And that is, of course, the favoured food of the black or Varro's eagle. Let me find you a rock hyrax here. There it is. That's it there. And David, you used the term dussie, which of course is what it's known as out here. A rock hyrax or dussie. There it is. It's rather cute. But I tell you what, you don't want to be caught by a black eagle. The black eagles catch them, take them up into the air, and then drop them in order to kill them, which really is a very nasty way to have to go, I'm afraid. And wherever rock hyraxes are present, you will find Varro's eagles. Just about. I mean, there are some exceptions. Thank you, David, for that. We also get something called a tree hyrax, but they seem to be fairly endangered. And we used to get them where I lived down in the Eastern Cape. but they seem to have disappeared of late, which is very sad. They make a tremendous shrieking noise when they're marking territory in the night. If you don't know what it is, it sounds like, well, it really does sound blood-curdling. It sounds like someone is in great distress. But it is the rock hyrax, at least the tree hyrax, yelling through the coastal bush night. Now, my plan from here, like I said, is to go towards Gwen, but we're just going to pop down all the way to the bottom of Twin Dams Road and just see if the Queen and Hosana and Shongile haven't returned. Of course, we have yet to be able to wish them happy birthday in person, which is a bit sad. I think we went to a lot of effort for their party, and I'm very upset with them that they didn't bother to pitch up. Really not very good manners at all. I suppose the Queen doesn't arrive at every invitation she receives for her birthday. And of course the Queen's birthday is next month, isn't it? I don't mean Elizabeth's birthday, I mean Karula's birthday. She's going to be 13 years old. In very fine state she is for a 13-year-old, wizened lady that she is. As you can see, my moths are still with me. We did lose, unfortunately, the egger moth is now in my box. The brown moth is holding on for dear life. And this fellow, whatever he is, he's also doing very well. Now, I hope that you are noticing my jewellery. It is now 3 days old. Rexon made it for me. One for me and one for Gendre. I don't know if Gendre has still got his on. There's the Birchall starling in perfect silhouette. Dreadful word that I cannot spell. Well done. Is that all we're getting? Oh, it's gone. It's not unlike VM to sort of put the camera on the bird for 2 seconds and then suddenly find that it's back on you because he's tired of it. VM, there was a Francolin went scuttling through here. We opened on a Franklin. VM, there cannot be many times in your life that you've opened on a Franklin, so have you got him? Well done. That is the Natal spurfowl, or Franklin. Now, he's standing over a midden, and I don't know if you were watching on Tuesday morning when Jame found Shongile lying, not Shongile, Hosana, lying in a midden. And it looked so very comfortable, so I thought I'd try it myself the other day. And I've got to tell you, I don't think that there's a softer, more pleasant surface out here to lie on than a well-aged midden. So I thoroughly approved of Hosana's choice. It was the day before his birthday. He was feeling a little under the weather. He had a horrible limp that day, and the next day he was absolutely fine. So his resilience shone through. Now, there's some pans up ahead here, see if we can find anything here. And I must just tell you, I'm having a little bit of a tough time with my frogs. Now, we'll be going back into the tent this afternoon, so I'll show it to you then. But of I don't know, we must have had about 15 or so little tadpoles. I've only got 7 left, and I can't find where the others have gone. They're not dead. Well, they're not at the bottom of the pond, so they're either eating each other or something is getting in there and eating them while I'm not around, or perhaps in the night. But only 7 tadpoles left. I've studiously changed their water every day, but I'm really struggling with them. So any advice on how to keep them going for the next few weeks, well, that would be greatly appreciated. But I'll show them to you this afternoon when we're in the tent. I'll try and take them all across. Right, Brent Leo Smith has made his way all the way to the Far East. Let us find out if he's going to be having some Singapore noodles for breakfast.
Well, I wouldn't actually mind some Singapore noodles for breakfast, but I will take a cheetah instead. Now, hopefully we're going to have some luck down here on Cheetah Plains, and so far very quiet, but it's a very beautiful morning. This mist from this morning has left the most wonderful light going through all the grass, as you can see. And on a positive note, all the big cats are not going to want to walk through that. They're not going to want to get dew in their eyes, so they're most likely going to try walk on the roads. But on that note, I've got lots of leopard updates for you. Unfortunately, none of them are great for us, but just so we all know what's happening out here. So Tundi and her cub crossed out of Chitwa into Torchwood. Quarantine in Kanyeni crossed from Nkoro into Torchwood, and Vutomi is also in Torchwood. Now, we've got two very wonderful young male leopards at the moment that we've been seeing. Of course, Vutomi is in Kanyen's youngster, and of course Hyena. Now, Hyena is the terror of terrapins all across the northern Sabi Sands, and it sounds like Vutomi is the terror of tortoises. And I think with Jame on the one TV show, we saw him eat tortoises. We've seen him play with a Speaks hinged tortoise. Two-step Tony, I think I dubbed him, as he was two-stepping his away from that young male leopard. Now, I've just heard apparently he's been playing with a tortoise now for a day in one spot, but he has now collected 3 others. So he's got 3 tortoises that he won't let go. I think that'll be absolutely fascinating to watch. So hopefully Vutomi, the terror of the tortoises, comes back to Cheetah Plains for a visit at some point. Now, there's been no updates on the cheetah. On the lion front, there was one male seen in Buffelshoek, another male and an Nkuma lioness seen in Sibambili, and the Styx Pride are still on Arathusa. I cannot bring myself to go look at the Styx Pride just yet. But there's a spider. You see him? Oh, he's running now. Oh, he's running away. I'll show you. You got him. So there's the web. Oh, it was one of those. Oh no, I can't. I've lost him. He's gone into the leaves. But there was his web. Okay, well, we'll keep looking. It's great to be able to spot spiders in this light because of the dew on their webs. Now, I wonder what wonders Cheetah Plains has for us this morning. Now, of course, we're continuing with that bird challenge to see how many birds we can get in a month and then keep adding up and keep a bird tally for the whole year. So I'm very excited to see, well, we sort of missed January, but in the 11 months to go, how many bird species we can get in the northern Sabi Sands. And we're doing quite well so far. For February, we've got some interesting species, and hopefully we might find some more interesting species. Now, I haven't been past 3 in a row pans in quite a while. It hasn't quite been the busy spot it has in the past. Of course, with the rain, and Cheetah Plains had a lot more rain than we did on Djuma. There's a lot of water around, so the animals are a bit more spread out. So we'll just have a gander past there, because you never know. We are on a live African safari. Remember, if you want to ask us any questions, you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or pop us an email to questions@WildEarth.TV. Okay, and we're approaching 3 in a row pan, which is actually now more 4 in a row pan. The elephants have wallowed out another pan just below. Hi Aaron in New Zealand. Aaron wants to know, is there any chance of seeing a southern banded snake eagle here? Well, there's always a chance, but if we did, I might start dancing. Very, very, very unlikely. They tend to be closer to the coastal plain. One of the best places to see them in South Africa is in northern Zululand, from Mkuzi, Pinda, but even better further to the north, Tembe Elephant Reserve and in Djuma are probably the best places to see southern banded snake eagle, and also the Sudwana State Forest along the coastal belt there. So that's probably the best place to see the southern banded snake eagle. As I said, it's very unlikely. Where did I put my bird book? There it is. Very, very unlikely, but you never know. I'll show you what a southern banded snake eagle looks like, just for fun. Well, there we go. They're the true eagles. So let's find the snake eagles. Now, of course, I think a lot of people don't realize that a bateleur is one of the snake eagles, and if you have a bit of a closer look at their body shape, it's very, very similar to a brown snake eagle, if not just a bit smaller. Where are the snake eagles hiding? There. And who said men can't multitask? I'm driving. Well, while we're talking about birds, Patricia says an ostrich would be a rare treat. Indeed it would, Patricia. Oh, is that a cheetah track? No, it is a hyena track. Okay, there we go. They're the snake eagles. So, number one is the southern banded snake eagle. A very pretty bird with a diagnostic legs without feathers. Now, if we have a look on the map on the left, I'll show you why it is. And there's always a chance, but it is very, very uncommon. The top map here, as you can see, along the coastal plain, the coastal belt, and there is a small population around the River Save and the Limpopo in Mozambique and in Zimbabwe, but we fall in that gap between the two spots. And I said the best place to see them in South Africa is right in that top corner of Zululand up against the Mozambique boundary. Always stop for a listen. Nothing making a noise, so I think it is quiz time. So since we're talking about snake eagles, I think a snake eagle quiz would be fitting. So who can tell me how many different species of snake eagle occur in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve? How many different species of snake eagle occur in the Sabi Sands? If you know the answer to that, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or questions at WildEarthTV via email. So how many different species of a snake eagle occur in the Sabi Sands? Oh, while you ponder the snake eagle species of the Sabi Sands, it seems like Stef has found something fascinating.
So for at least a year, I didn't know what I was looking at. That is, I'm not going to quiz you. I'm not as fond of them as what Brent is. I'll eventually tell you what this is. But what I am going to do is point out some of its features, because they were, for me at least anyway, an absolute bizarre thing. I could not understand how an insect could make something like this. So it's obviously attached to the stick via a collar there. It is then opaque, you can see through it, and it has a seam down the middle over here. Not very big, it's probably about as big as my thumbnail. And inside, it's always been a difficult thing to try and see what is inside there. This one I'm not going to open because its occupant is still in there. But I was lucky enough to find a picture of one of these in one of my reference books the other day, and I can tell you what it is. This is the opaque egg casing of a gargoyle mantis. Isn't that just the most fabulous name for something that you've ever heard in your life? So this is the gargoyle mantises, one of the largest mantis that we found out here. Probably the biggest ones get to about this big. And they're called gargoyle mantises because their eyes are actually pointed, and it makes them look like something out of some mythical fable type of effort. But this one has got one inside still, so I'm not going to open it now and show you. But isn't that just the most amazing egg case? I mean, why would Mother Nature make an egg case like this? Just beyond me. Sort of this breaches those bounds between form follows function, you know. And that is what just interests me the most about this particular egg case. It's just, there's some aesthetic appeal to this egg case. It is hard. Probably feels like thin plastic. Oh, really cool. I quite like that. Right, we are going to send you back over to James, who has finally arrived at that hyena den off of Cheetah Cutline.
Right, we're here at Gwendoline's place, and there's quite a lot of activity inside there. Now, for those of you who perhaps weren't with us yesterday, the question we're all asking is, why is she in there? That is an unusual place for an adult hyena to be. In fact, it's very unusual, unless, perhaps, she's in the process of either giving birth, or perhaps she is trying to suckle her youngsters. Now, she's unfortunately very unkindly turned her back to us. But she did have her face pointing towards us, and I'm just staring in there with my binoculars. Now she's disappeared entirely. I mean, that's a massive hole. You still see her, Vim? Not at all, or very slightly. And I'm just wondering if she hasn't given birth. It would be difficult to understand how it all happened, because as Jame said, or Jame found, of course, the youngsters that were here were probably hers from about 8 months ago. Now, the birthing interval of 8 months for a hyena would be very unusual, but it's not impossible. You know, if the clan has been eating a lot up where they've been living, perhaps the youngsters stopped suckling a little bit earlier than they would normally, and maybe she was mated again a little bit early. But this, I mean, she's been in this hole now for what, almost 5 days. Anthony, while we look into that hole there and hope that she'll stick her head up, you're wondering about at what age hyenas will become sexually mature. Anthony, they will become sexually mature at about 18 months, if I'm not mistaken, but it's unlikely the females will mate probably before they're about 2.5 to 3 years old, and the males probably also don't mate until they're at least sort of 5 or 6. So although they're capable of mating, they don't necessarily do it. The female's just too young, probably don't conceive properly, and the males, of course, well, they'll be dominated by other males if they're too young. She might just check that up for you, because I have a suspicion that hyenas are slightly different, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. She's not being particularly entertaining, is she, Vim? Do you think this is the most entertaining hyena sighting you've ever had?
I've had worse.
You've had worse?
Yes,
Speaking of lions, I believe Brent told you that the sticks are on Arathusa and that he's not able to go and see them. I don't blame him. We will pop past there. We're just the other side of Djuma at the moment, and so what we'll do is just let things quieten down in Arathusa a bit. I suspect there are probably lots of people going to see them, and then we'll go across there before the end of the drive and have a look at the Styx Pride and see how their little cubs are doing. But that's all that's going on here, I'm afraid. Not a great deal. Natasha, you were saying that the hyena is breathing very heavily. Yes, she is. I agree. And it's not hot yet. It's not like it's hot in that hole of hers. She looks like she's fast asleep now. And I haven't heard any noise. I've heard no kind of twittering or noise from inside there. So I don't, it's not like I've got any evidence for there being youngsters. Except that yesterday she did make a bit of a sort of grunt into the middle of the den. She was going, oh, oh. Gemma, I'm afraid I've got no idea about your question. You say, does the hyena clan recognize that or notice that Gwen is missing? I don't. Do they realize that she's missing? Yes, I think they probably do. They're very social. They know each other very well. They know each other intimately, and a bit like monkeys or baboons. If one member of the troop is removed, yes, they do notice the absence. Would they then go and look for her? No, absolutely not. It's perfectly normal for a subordinate female to move away from the den. So no, I don't think that she would move. They would necessarily come and look for her or necessarily miss her. All right, we're going to stay here for the next little while, but Brent Leo Smith has managed to find something slightly more, well, obvious than this.
Look at this, a beautiful big adult elephant bull underneath a massive marula tree. I guess he's about 30, just over 30. Not the biggest tusks, but definitely big in body. Now, if he moves off from that tree, so okay, just come wide again. So there we actually, that's perfect. Just zoom in so you got the trunk and of the tree and the elephant. So look at that. So there we go. We're going to stop there and get a screenshot of that, and then when the elephant moves off, I'll go stand next to that marula tree so you can get a comparison of how big that elephant actually is. I would say he's probably over 4 meters at the shoulder, at the top of his shoulder, so a really lovely big old gentleman. And he's grazing, even though he's under a marula tree. Doesn't look like that marula tree has any fruit, so he's actually after the grass. Hey, mister. So I said not the biggest or thickest tusks, but definitely an adult, over 30 years old. Hey, mister. And you do get this wonderful sense of well-being when around elephants. So sometimes you've got to be careful on cheetah plains because we are so close to the Kruger boundary. There's a lot of elephants that might not be used to vehicles and people, so we stopped a little bit further away, and I'm hoping he decides to come closer to us. That's fine because we haven't moved into his space. We'll let him move into ours. Hey, mister. He might just give us a little head shake as he walks past us, just to remind us that he is the big boss in this area. But his body language so far is very, very relaxed. There we go, stopping for another grass snack. There's a nice panicum thicket, or panicum stand as they're called, of grass that he's plucking right out and straight down the gullet. Oh, and a grevillea leaf. Oh. Now, Eric would like to know a little bit about elephant behavior. Now, that's a very common sort of stride for Derek, sorry, not Eric, as he walks away there. You see how his tail is swinging from side to side. A tail is a very, very important part of reading elephant behavior. Hang on, sorry. There we go. And as I said, the tail, head, the trunk is probably, for me, one of the ones you watch the least, and because it's always busy, it's always doing stuff. Okay, well, he's moving off into some very thick stuff now. We'll just keep watching him for a few seconds, wonderful with that light coming through the grass. Now, and if any of you have watched that little Safari Live story about elephant behavior, we cover most of the bases there, but the most important thing to always remember is that every single situation is different, and you have to judge each situation on its own. You can't have a blanket rule, and that goes for any animal behavior out here, really, because they can do different things at different times. There could be other stress levels you don't know about, so you just got to read every situation differently. And as I said, he was pretty relaxed the whole time, but because of the area where we are, we stopped a little bit further away than I possibly would have normally, just to make sure he was as relaxed. But so if he hadn't been relaxed, what would have probably happened is he would have lifted his head up high. His tail would have become probably not fully straight, but it would have become quite stiff, and he would have shaken his head, lifted his head towards us, and then tried to move away from us at an oblique angle. Now, they often do that. It's trying not to lose face, but still creating distance. So he likes to sort of moves away where you can see you with his head held up, but he's still not, he's still creating distance. Okay, he's disappeared into the thickets far enough away, so I'm going to jump out of the car quickly, and I'm going to go stand next to that big marula tree, so you guys can see how massive he actually is. Sometimes it's quite difficult to get that perspective through the camera lens. See, this is why big cats don't like walking through the grass in the morning. It's very wet.